It is the middle of the night. A man sits alone at a wooden desk, somewhere on the northern frontier of the Roman Empire. Outside, his army is camped across miles of frozen ground. A plague is moving through his soldiers. There are wars on 3 borders. 2 of his children are dead. He picks up a pen, and he begins to write. Not orders, not strategy, not a letter to the Senate. He writes to himself, in a private journal he never intended anyone to read, about how to stop his mind from spiraling, about how to keep fear from becoming something larger than the moment that caused it. His name was Marcus Aurelius. He was Emperor of Rome, the most powerful man alive, and he was writing what we now call the Meditations. Inside that journal is something extraordinary, not a philosophy of power, not a manual for kings. A cure for anxiety, written 2,000 years before modern psychology had a name for what he was describing. In this video, I want to take you inside the Meditations, not as a history lesson, but as a practical guide. We are going to cover 3 things. Why anxiety is not a modern problem, the one Stoic principle that eliminates most anxious thoughts, and the 3 daily practices Marcus used to stay grounded while running an empire. Stay until the end. The 3rd practice is the one almost nobody talks about, and it may be the most powerful of all. We assume anxiety is a modern problem. Social media, 24-hour news, financial pressure, notifications that never stop. We have built a world that seems purpose-designed to make us anxious. And we assume that previous generations were somehow spared. But open the Meditations, read what Marcus actually wrote. He writes about waking up, unwilling to face the day, about people who exhaust him, about the fear of death, his own and those he loves, about the temptation to give up on being good when everyone around him seems to be getting away with being terrible. This is not the writing of a man at peace. This is the writing of a man in the middle of a very hard life, trying to think his way through it. And here is the part that changes everything. Marcus ruled Rome from 161 to 180 AD. Those years included one of the worst pandemics in Roman history, the Antonine Plague, which killed up to 5 million people, constant war on the empire's borders, political betrayal, the deaths of several of his children. He had every reason to be consumed by anxiety. And in his private journal, we see that he sometimes was, which means the Meditations is not a book written by a man who had it together. It is a book written by a man who was actively fighting to keep it together, using the same tools he is about to teach us. Anxiety in the Stoic view is almost always caused by one thing: spending your mental energy on things outside your control. Marcus learned his philosophy from Epictetus, a former slave who had been crippled by his master and gone on to become one of the most respected thinkers in Rome. Epictetus taught that everything in life falls into one of 2 categories: things within your control, your thoughts, your choices, your values, how you direct your attention; things outside your control, everything else, the weather, the economy, what other people say and do and think about you, whether your plans succeed, whether the people you love stay safe. This sounds simple. It is not. Because our minds are extraordinarily skilled at pretending that Category 2 things are actually Category 1 things. We rehearse arguments that haven't happened yet. We scroll through the news as if our attention can change what is already done. We lie awake imagining futures we cannot control. And our body responds to those imagined futures as if they are happening right now. This is not weakness. This is the default setting of every human mind. The Stoics did not shame people for it. They built a practice to interrupt it. Marcus developed his version of this practice into one question, a question so simple it fits on a breath. Is this within my control? If yes, act decisively, immediately, without hesitation. If no, release it, not reluctantly, not with resentment, completely. He wrote, "Never let the future disturb you. You will meet it, if you have to, with the same weapons of reason which today arm you against the present." That is not passive acceptance, that is directed energy. Stop fighting battles in your imagination. Save your strength for the actual moment when it arrives. Now the 3 practices. Each one takes 5 minutes. Each one was used by Marcus every single day. The first is the morning review. Before the day began, Marcus would sit before meetings, before decisions, before any of it, and prepare his mind for what was coming, not by making plans, not by writing lists, by anticipating difficulty. He would ask himself, what is likely to be hard today? Who might be difficult? What might go wrong? And then he would remind himself, quietly, before it happened, of how he intended to respond. The Stoics called this premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of adversity. It sounds counterintuitive. Every piece of modern self-help says, visualize success. The Stoics said, visualize the obstacle, so that when it arrives, it finds you already prepared. Anxiety feeds on surprise. The morning review starves it. 5 minutes. Every morning, before anything else. The second practice is the evening audit. At the end of each day, Marcus would reflect, not on what he accomplished, but on how he showed up. Did I react from fear or from principle today? Where did I lose my patience? Where did I give my energy to something outside my control? Not as self-criticism, as calibration. Most anxious people spend their evenings avoiding their days, scrolling, watching, anything that keeps them from sitting quietly with what actually happened. The evening audit does the opposite. It creates a natural release valve, permission for the mind to process rather than suppress. Here is the one question that does it. Where did I give my energy today? To things within my control or to things beyond it? Ask it honestly. Write the answer if you can. Then close the day. 5 minutes. That is all it requires. The third practice is the one almost nobody talks about. Marcus called it returning to the present, and he wrote about it more than almost anything else in the Meditations. Here is what he understood about anxiety that modern neuroscience has only recently confirmed. Anxiety does not live in the present moment. It lives in time, in the past that cannot be changed, and the future that has not happened. The present moment is the only place anxiety cannot survive for long. Marcus practiced what we might now call deliberate presence, not as spirituality, not as meditation in the formal sense, but as a cognitive tool, a way of pulling his attention back to what was directly in front of him whenever his mind tried to drift into worry about things that did not exist yet. What does a difficult conversation feel like before it happens? You rehearse it, you imagine all the things they might say. You feel the anxiety of an event that is entirely fictional, that may never happen at all, or if it does, will almost certainly unfold nothing like what you imagined. That is you living in a future that doesn't exist yet. That is the second kind of suffering Marcus spent his life learning to interrupt. His method was simple, the task in his hands, the person across the table, the breath moving through his body, one of these right now instead of the imagined future. He wrote 3 words that contain the whole of this practice. Confine yourself to the present. 3 words, 2,000 years old. Still the most direct antidote to a spiraling mind ever written. Marcus Aurelius never published the Meditations. He never meant for anyone to read it. What we have is a private record of a man, the most powerful man alive, fighting the same internal battles that every human being fights. He was not always winning. The journal makes that clear. He wrote reminders to himself because he needed them. He practiced these disciplines because without them, he knew what he was capable of becoming. The morning review, the evening audit, the return to the present. 3 practices, 15 minutes total, used every day by a man who governed 70 million people across 3 continents, while fighting a plague and 2 simultaneous wars. Anxiety is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is the mind doing what minds do, trying to solve every problem, including the ones that don't exist yet. The Stoic answer is not to silence the mind, it is to redirect it, to ask it better questions, to give it the only territory it was ever meant to govern. This moment, these choices, this breath. Here is your one practice from this video. Tonight, before you sleep, spend 5 minutes on the evening audit. Just ask yourself one question. Where did I give my energy today? To things within my control or to things beyond it? Write the answer if you can, even one sentence. That single question asked honestly is where Stoic practice begins. Next week, we go deeper into Stoic philosophy, the one rule Epictetus gave for stopping overthinking immediately. Subscribe so you don't miss it. And if you know someone who carries anxiety they cannot put down, share this video with them. Marcus Aurelius wrote it for himself, but it was always meant for anyone who needed it. I will see you in the next one.